everybody, I'm Maddie.
I'm Cydney.
And welcome back to Curious by Nature, where today we are covering garden maintenance practices.
Yes! Y'all, this is super exciting. If you are a native gardener, you know that end of May, beginning of June is a wonderful time to be working in your garden here in the Midwest. And there are some things that need to be done. So today we're going to demonstrate how to use various tools, including my favorite tool, the paint scraper, which is actually a weeding tool, pruners, hand pruners. See that here? Yeah. These are my two main manual tools. But we're also going to show you how to do practices like the Chelsea chop, which is a late spring pruning technique. And we demonstrate that both with our pruners and an electric hedge trimmer.
Yeah, let's go talk about it. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
There we go. Hey everyone, howdy y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Curious by Nature with Deep Roots. My name is Maddie Ball. I'm going to be hosting today's episode, and we are going to get into a bunch of good native garden maintenance content in just a little bit. But first, Deep Roots is having a huge week of events this week, and I'm really excited to share what's going on with you all. So let's talk through some of that stuff before we get into the maintenance, huh? How about it? But before all of that, I'm going to go ahead and thank the sponsors of today's episode, which is the Missouri Department of Conservation. Thank you, Missouri Department of Conservation, for supporting Curious by Nature and for the work that you do across the state. I'd also like to thank our viewers and donors like you for making programs like this possible. You guys, Deep Roots' first ever 3-day native plant sale, our pop-up pollinator plant sale, is starting right now. It started at noon today, just a minute ago. So today, tomorrow, and Saturday, you can head to the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center to bring habitat home with you. We've got a great selection of plants that are perfect for residential gardens. If you pre-ordered plants, make sure you pick up, you or somebody that you know goes to the plant sale today to pick those orders up. Otherwise, feel free to stop by and shop around, talk, learn about these plants, and find one that's perfect for your landscape. Tomorrow is the first Friday of the month, which means it's time for Native Landscape Chat. Also at the Anita B. Gorman Center, this is a naturalist guided walk through the gardens there. And this month is a little extra special as we are partnering with Burroughs Audubon Society to talk about birds, plants, and how these two things are connected. Then afterwards, we're already at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Center. You might as well just go shop around at the plant sale, which will be happening at the same time. In case you're wondering, I almost just knocked over my water. That would have been really terrible. One of those days. Lastly, on Saturday, to close out our events, or our week of events, we are having our June Habitat Garden Tour. At this month's tours, we will be exploring 3 residential native gardens, all with various styles and goals. Join us and see how native plants play a role in the lives of an artist and food grower, a filmmaker, and a manual therapist who practices herbalism. These are self-guided tours open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'm really, really excited to show these gardens off and these gardeners as well. And I can't wait to see you guys there. Okay, next Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Deep Roots is partnering with Johnson County Parks and Recreation District for a guided birding walk at Big Bull Creek Park. Bring your binoculars, your hiking boots, and a curious mind, and join me as we discover what's going on in the skies, in the trees, and in the ground at Big Bull Creek. To learn more about registration, times, or this event in general, you can go to Deep Roots' upcoming events page on our website. Our next Curious by Nature episode will air on Thursday, June 18th at noon, and it will be a virtual hike through Cedar Niles Park. Cedar Niles is a relatively unknown natural area where scattered limestone outcrops hint at a larger glade ecosystem stretching into nearby remnant prairies and woodlands. And if that doesn't sound magical, it absolutely 100% is magical. Along with our exploration of the natural area, we will be discovering the challenges and opportunities of conserving this rare community amid growing park development pressure. Join live to participate in the live Q&A session, or you can watch the live show after it airs on our YouTube channel or through your preferred podcast application. Like always, this webinar is recorded and all resources will be sent to the live viewer inboxes following the show. Questions you have during today's episode can be put in the Q&A section, and will be answered at the end of the show. And during that Q&A session, we will also have a pop quiz covering some of the topics we're talking about today, which is native garden maintenance. And with that, let's go ahead and bring out Deep Roots Outdoor Education Manager and native plant nerd, Cydney Ross. Cydney Ross.
Maddie Ball, so good to see you.
Good to see you too. We need to have like a walkout song, something
Yeah,
played
we
like
do.
Cydney Ross. That would be awesome.
I love it.
Cydney, how are you doing today?
Girl, I am hyped.
Yeah.
Y'all, I sent Maddie a text at like 7 a.m. and was like, I've already been outside. I'm excited for today. I'm excited for all of our Deep Roots events happening now through Saturday. There's so much going on, and I'm just so pumped. If you couldn't
Yeah. Will you tell us a little bit about you were working in your garden this morning? Will you tell us what you were doing out there? Some cool stuff.
Yes. So, okay. Um, so I was like laying in bed at first, and I was like, you know what would be great is if I actually went outside this morning and got and touched some grass and like got my hands dirty. And that's exactly what I did. So I went into my front yard and I was like, okay, I have a blue false indigo, which is Baptisia australis, and a prairie blazing star. Liatris pycnostacia. But then I was like, where the heck am I going to put this? If y'all have seen some of our most recent episodes, you know I've got a lot of biodiversity up in that front garden and not a lot of real estate open for that. So I made some big decisions, Maddie.
Tell us about it.
I decided to dig out my aromatic aster entirely. I'm not composting it or getting rid of it by moving it to my backyard, which is a little more informal and slightly more shaded. So I'm hoping that by moving that really prolific plant to the back, I can kind of put some pressure on it by putting it in an unideal condition.
Oh, because it normally requires full sun, correct?
Yeah, it thrives in full sun.
Okay.
It's a prairie species. My backyard is more shaded.
Mhm.
And anyone who's had aromatic aster knows that it spreads prolifically. And anyway, so it's a great plant, but I was like, I want my front yard to be a little more formal, and I wanted to open up space to put in that blue false indigo and prairie blazing star. So that was super exciting. And then it kind of was the perfect segue into today's episode because we're talking about, how to manage some of these prolific species and just general native garden maintenance. And so another way that you can manage those prolific friends is by cutting off the blooms. I know it's scary and it's like, oh no, but what about the pollinators? So don't worry, we're going to jump into it. But that, just a little teaser of what we're getting into today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to show you guys some of the work that we did at the Discovery Center Gardens in the bio-swales and a little bit from Cydney's own garden as well. You'll see some clips of that charming residential garden of hers.
Oh, thanks, Matt.
So, are we ready to get into it?
Let's dive in.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. Going dark. Enjoy, everyone.
Hey everybody, I'm Maddie,
I'm Cydney.
and welcome back to Curious by Nature, where today we are covering garden maintenance practices.
Yes, y'all, this is super exciting. If you are a native gardener, you know that end of May, beginning of June is a wonderful time to be working in your garden here in the Midwest. And there are some things that need to be done. So today we're going to demonstrate how to use various tools, including my favorite tool, the paint scraper, which is actually a weeding tool, pruners, hand pruners. See that here? Yeah. These are my two main manual tools. But we're also going to show you how to do practices like the Chelsea chop, which is a late spring pruning technique. And we demonstrate that both with our pruners and an electric hedge trimmer.
Yeah, let's quit talking about it and let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Cydney,
Yes.
what are we looking at here?
Okay, so we're here in the bio-swales at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center in Kansas City. And the bio-swales are a really great place to help filter off that stormwater runoff and hold it on site a little longer and clean it before it ends up in our waterways. This planting was started 2 years ago, and today we're going to be doing the Chelsea chop on gray-headed coneflower. Because if you look around, there's all these cute little echinaceas and lanceleaf coreopsis, purple poppy mallow, and then there's this big honkin' friend, our friend, gray-headed coneflower.
Radabeta pinnata.
Correct.
Okay.
She's a great plant, but she's a bit gregarious, and I really want these other plants to get a head start before they get outcompeted by this gregarious friend. So we have a couple options here. We could either edit it out completely like we saw in our last episode, or we can try the Chelsea chop, keep it a little more contained, get it shorter, and then it'll set the bloom time back a bit too. So I think we're going to go for the latter and give that a shot, and then we may revisit this area later in the season and decide what we want to do from there.
What kind of plants are ideal candidates for a Chelsea chop as a maintenance practice?
Yeah, so plants that would be a good candidate would be anything that tends to bloom later in the season. But I hear like asters and goldenrods, silphiums, helianthus species, those all tend to take to this pruning technique pretty well. If you think about it, it's like we're doing mimicked herbivory. So we're the little herbivores in the garden munching on the plants. And if you think about it, our native plants have evolved with our wildlife for millennia. So they kind of have this intricate relationship already. So they're adapted to be eaten. Now, I will say there's a caveat. There are some things that could really stress out your plant if you do this method. Like if you just installed your plants this year, maybe don't try the Chelsea chop in that first season, right? They're spending all their time trying to get their roots established. If you stress them out, you might kill the plant. Another thing to think about is if we go into a drought. So we do have rain in the forecast, so I feel pretty good about this. But if you cut a bunch of stuff back as we get closer to June and there's no rain for several weeks, you could stress that plant out and it could die. So check your forecast, make sure there's rain in the forecast, or water your plants like the day after you do this so that they can, bounce back from the stress of it all.
Gray-headed coneflower, Rhodobeta pinnata,
Yeah.
because it's so gregarious, how actually is the Chelsea chop going to keep it contained when it will still flower and maybe spread seeds later on?
Well, so this is going to be a little bit of an experiment because it actually has already put buds on, and typically with the Chelsea chop, this is a late spring pruning technique that is based on the Chelsea Flower Show in London. And so it's something that people do for these late summer, early fall blooms to keep them shorter, not be as leggy, and have more blooms. So you're right, it feels a little counterintuitive, but because this plant already has blooms on it, I'm thinking it's actually going to maybe prevent it from blooming altogether.
I feel like some gardeners would be like, but wait, I want to see the bloom.
Yeah, so if you do want to see it bloom, then make sure you're cutting it before it has buds on it. But in this case, we're kind of using that as a strategy to maybe keep the blooms at bay, or it may set it far back enough where these other plants have had time to contribute seed to the seed bank, and then if it does flower again, we may remove those flowers and put them in a bouquet at the demonstration table inside the Discovery Center so folks can see the blooms. So we're putting a lot of pressure on this plant right now. Yeah.
Okay, so where do we start?
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have you get your hand pruners. So I like to use the Felco brand, but any brand works. I know Maddie's using Fiskar. Whatever tools you have on hand is the best thing, in my opinion, just to get started. So then you're going to identify the plant you're cutting back. In this case, we've already identified gray-headed coneflower. And as a general rule of thumb, they say you can cut back 20%, maybe up to 30% of living plant material, and it shouldn't, in theory, harm your plant. So for this, I'm going to give it a pretty severe cut, though. We're going to go beyond that measure because,
Okay.
I'm like, here's what they say, and here's what I'm actually going to do.
It's experimenting. It's trying something out. We're going to see how it goes.
I think the Discovery Center is like America's test kitchen for gardening.
Yeah.
We try things, we figure out, does it work? Did that not work? And learn from our mistakes and successes. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I'm going to have you get down, and we're going to cut actually 2/3 of the gray-headed coneflower, okay? So it's going to feel a little severe, again, but this is our intention to make sure this doesn't flower this season, or at least sets the bloom time back quite a bit. So I like to use my hand pruners for this particular plant, and I like to cut at a 45-degree angle with the cut marks facing away from everyone, from wherever you're going to be walking by, so it looks a little neater. So in this case, 2/3 would be about here. So I think that's leaving I don't know, what is that, 12 to 16 inches of height maybe. So notice there is purple poppy mallow growing through it, so I want to make sure I'm not cutting that. But I'm just going at an angle, and you're going to cut piece by piece and pull those pieces away as you go so you can kind of see what you're working with.
Is there a place on the stem where you're cutting at an angle or just anywhere?
So I'll do my first pass just kind of generally so I can see what's happening, and then I'll go in and fine tune it and make it look a little nicer.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just removing the mass. That way I can see, okay, where can I make some cleaner cuts so it doesn't look as obvious that we've hacked this.
Okay.
So I'm looking for those areas where new growth is going to occur on the stem. You could just do that, do it right the first time. But sometimes I like to be able to just see the big picture.
Yeah.
Before I really get in there.
Yeah, it's hard to see anything through this.
I know, it's like, okay, this is a lot of plant. But
kind of satisfying.
It's super satisfying. If folks feel a little intimidated by this process, like maybe you haven't done this before in your own garden, you can just try, like, test it a little bit. You don't have to cut your entire plant back. So notice how, looking at this plant, you can't even tell where I've cut. And so as you remove your mass, you'll then come back in and cut further down and conceal it.
How do we actually conceal those cut stems?
Okay, so what we're gonna do, so right now you can see they're all very much exposed, right? And obvious. So then I'm gonna go through and I'm going to, again, at a 45-degree angle, but I'm looking for where that growth is going to occur. And I'm just gonna cut a little further down. I might even cut some pieces like deeper into the foliage so that you can't see it. But that way it looks neater and it's not like hacked. We don't want to draw attention to the fact that it has been cut. So I'm just kind of going in piece by piece. And now you don't have to do this. This is only if aesthetically
you want to not show the cuts.
Right. And here, since the Discovery Center is a public garden and we're really trying to encourage more native plants, I want it to look the best that it could possibly be.
Yeah. It already looks so much better.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to give it a shot, Maddie?
Sure. So I think like maybe gardeners are worried about cutting too far down the stems.
Mm-hmm.
But this is feeling much more relaxed and it's not an exact science. Is that correct?
It's an art for sure. So,
I mean, obviously we're experimenting, and there's suggested percentages, but it doesn't have to be perfect.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Action over perfection, in the words of MDC.
Yeah.
The poppy mallow, thankfully, is actually working to our advantage here. It's going to climb up and through this plant. But yeah, you can kind of see in there. Awesome.
Cool. This is really easy.
And very cathartic, right?
Yeah, kind of satisfying.
Yeah.
Like vacuuming, but outdoors. I'm like cleaning it up.
Cleaning it up.
Nice.
So Maddie, is this your first time doing the Chelsea
This is
chop?
my first Chelsea chop.
How do you feel?
Mark the day. I feel great. I feel a lot more confident about it than I did before anyways. Because like I said, it's not an exact science. And once you have your goals in mind and you know the plants that you maybe want to cut down, whether it's to keep them from spreading prolifically or to maybe get later season blooms at a shorter height, it just makes sense. And I'm excited to see the results.
Me too. So glad that you got to do this.
Chelsea, chop!
Cydney and I went ahead and Chelsea chopped the rest of the gray-headed coneflower in that bio-swale, which took a decent amount of time. So instead of having you all watch that footage, let's head back in time and join Cydney at her garden to talk a little bit about weeding.
So I'm out here in my front yard and I'm just spending 10-15 minutes with my weeding tool in my beautiful spring garden to remove some of the plants I don't intend to have in here. Let's get started. It is mid-April and I want to talk a minute about the plants that will just show up in your garden, like white clover or violets, and what do you do about it? Sometimes I keep things like my violets because they are native, they provide great support for our early spring pollinators, and frankly, they're just really cute. But now white clover, which is great as an addition to a lawn, it really easily overwhelms the plants I intend to have in my garden. So I'm actually gonna weed out this white clover patch here. They spread by little rhizomes and then they eventually overwhelm areas. So I'm gonna edit those out. I am gonna leave some of my violets. Like I love this beautiful big strip I have here, but you can see things like my pussy toes it can easily get overwhelmed. Same with my rose verbena. So just a matter of making decisions and editing your garden as you see fit in order to help support your goals. We just had a nice spring rain last night, and the soil is super soft. So the first thing I like to do is first kind of assess and see, is this stuff easy enough for me to just kind of gently pull? And I already knew the answer to this because clover has these, even though they're kind of shallow roots, I want to make sure I'm getting all of the root, because any root left behind is going to just grow new plant. So here I'm using my 6-point paint scraper tool. This is an easy, affordable weeding tool that can help you hook onto those roots without doing immense soil disturbance, because the more you disturb the soil, the more you're kicking up things in the seed bank. Oftentimes it's things you don't necessarily want growing in your garden. So always making sure you're kind of being aware of the plant you're trying to protect, like this Dittany here. I don't want to accidentally hook onto its roots, but you can see how the white clover has gotten really in there. And I love white clover in my lawns, don't get me wrong. Hashtag save the bees. But it does get to be very annoying and can overwhelm a garden super easily because it's just a prolific spreader. So yeah, if you're going to add white clover, highly recommend you don't add it anywhere near your garden bed. In this instance of my personal garden here, this was lawn just a couple years ago, so the soil is still kind of getting things figured out. My plants that I put in here are getting established, but there was lots of clover here in this lawn prior to it becoming a native garden. Okay, now I have a situation where I have, again, here's my Dittany, and underneath it I have a violet trying to grow right next to it, which I will edit out. If for some reason you don't get the whole plant out, my friend Steven would call that insulting the plant. Sometimes you can insult a plant enough or eventually it just goes away, but ideally you're getting the whole root. Oops. And then sometimes accidents like this happen where I was pulling out clover and I didn't see I had some pussy toes hiding in there. Not to worry though, I'm just gonna tease them out. So here's the plant I do want to keep. Here's the clover, I'm gonna compost. And I'm just gonna carefully put this back in over here. Though I actually might move it because the violets are so prolific, they will outcompete these pussy toes because they are higher on the sociability scale. Wow, this is a tricky situation. I don't know if you can kind of see what's going on here. Well, it would help if this little stick wasn't in the way. There you go. Okay. So kind of tricky to see, but I have a ton of clover growing like right underneath this tiny Dittany plant, which I want to protect. If I don't remove this clover, I won't have this Dittany plant very soon. Okay. Same with those violets again. Just kind of making decisions. You don't have to always weed everything out. Like, no one's got time for that. Be strategic. Think about what your goals are. If you just want a clover patch, like, by all means, just have a clover patch. But I don't. I want some of these nice native herbs. They're very cute. They bloom later in the year, which is awesome. There we go. Looky there. Much better. Pretty darn good.
Back at the Discovery Center, we are finished cutting back the gray-headed coneflower, but we're not quite done working in the bio-swale. Cydney found another species, high on the sociability scale, that we need to edit out of this planting.
So here is a common plant that will probably just emerge in your landscape. It is frost aster or old field aster. It blooms these little white asters later in the season, but as many asters are, they're prolific seeders. So I want to pull them out now because they will eventually flower and eventually we'll have even more of this in the landscape. So what I'm doing is I've got my gloves on, I'm gloved and ready, and I am grabbing down at the base. I'm bundling this plant. My knees are bent and I am slowly tugging this out. And so notice that root system on here and all that soil. I want to make sure I'm leaving all of that soil. You never want to lose your soil in your landscape. It is a hot commodity, but just observe this nice fibrous root system of this plant. And so I do leaf frost aster like in my backyard, which is very informal, but that is not the goal for this bio-swale. We want to make sure we keep like the 6 species that we intended to have in here, and remove those prolific species that keep coming in. So I've seen like aromatic aster, which is great in other areas, but I don't want it in here. I've seen tall bee balm, Monarda fistulosa, which I definitely don't want in here right now. Those would all be fine to come in later once these are really established, but we've got goals for this garden, so we're going to keep it to it. So it's always good to pull back the other plants around it, so make sure you're pulling the right thing. Oh. And notice, I didn't see down in there how I didn't quite get all of that root out.
Yeah.
If I leave that, that will come back. So I'm going to move these out of the way so you can see it better. Okay, so that is the crown of that old field aster. So what I'm going to do now is take my paint scraper and I'm going to use it to pop it out. So I'm using the hook part. Oh, it's really in there. Okay, yeah, look at that. So this is just part of the crown. There's still more pieces in here, so you got to remove all of that. Otherwise, it'll probably just come back. Which, if you don't have time, insulting it is a way. You know, if you're like, I just need to quickly make sure it doesn't go to seed or something. Now, at least cutting it back, dealing with it later. Look, you got to do what you got to do with the time and the resources and the means that you have. It's all good. It's just gardening.
Hey, Cydney.
Hey, what?
I was thinking.
Yeah?
Do you want to go check out Primrose Prairie?
Yes, I do. I'm so excited. Oh, you guys.
Wow.
Looky.
OMG.
The namesake of this garden, Missouri Evening Primrose, is a bloomin'. Dang, that's a lot of bloom.
That's a lot of bloom.
So yeah,
Great.
this is the peak time for this garden. That's how I designed it.
Shout out some of the blooms we're seeing now. So we've got obviously Missouri Evening Primrose.
Missouri Evening Primrose, we've got Glade Coneflower, we've got pale purple coneflower, we've got rock pink, which opens in the afternoon, we've got rose verbena, we've got yellow coneflower down here, eyelash grass is blooming. Oh my god, you guys. Did you know grasses bloom? That still blows my mind.
Wow,
Look at.
look.
Would you look at?
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, that looks, lovely. Oh, gorgeous. Oh yes. It worked.
We also have hairy petunia in here. This is our native petunia, so cute.
So cute.
Ruellia humilis.
Wow. Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So there's a lot of evening primrose.
Yes.
Last episode we talked about plant sociability.
Yes.
How does that primrose land on the sociability scale, and how does it compare to some of these other species that we see next to it?
That's a great question. So I personally would rank Missouri Evening Primrose as a moderate, like medium high on that spectrum. If it's social is like the high end and solitary is the low end, I put it like medium high. Like think about turning your stove on, like medium high. So you can see how prolific it is, but it still works well. It's compatible with the rose verbena, the hairy petunia, even the eyelash grass does fine with it. And I think some of the less social species like the pale purple coneflower, glade coneflower, and yellow coneflower do just fine on the back end because it has slightly more shade. So it kind of keeps that primrose on the edge where I intended it to be, which has worked out great.
As much as I'd like to say that we just came over here to play and giggle in the gardens, we do have some additional Chelsea chopping to do, specifically in the prairie circles.
Okay, so now we're in the prairie section of the Discovery Center, and we have in our prairie circles willow leaf sunflower. And this plant, okay, this is the end of May right now. It doesn't bloom until like July or so, and if we left it like this, it'll eventually be about 12 to 15 feet tall. So we're gonna give it a Chelsea chop, and we're gonna do a few things. I'm gonna be careful not to accidentally cut this blazing star that's growing beneath it. So I'll use my hand pruners to cut around the delicate plants nearby that we wanna keep. But then I'm gonna use my electric hedge trimmer and show you how you can just kind of shear these plants around. And so for this ring, we're gonna do something kind of cool. I think it's cool anyway. We're gonna leave the center tall and cut around the edge, and then we'll come back in a couple months and see what that looks like. But this is just another fun way to play with that early spring Chelsea chop pruning technique. Let's dive in. So I'm using my pruners, and I'm just, for the ones around the blazing star, I really want to give them some room. So I'm just going to cut these pieces of willow leaf like down to only like 6 inches next to it. It's okay for me if these little bits don't bloom, because I really want to make room for these blazing stars, this liatris here, to have its space. Okay. And then as I get further into the center, oops, I just cut some of the blazing star. We'll see what happens with that. Maybe it'll grow back shorter and bushier. Okay, so giving some room to these here. And as I move further into the center, I'm gonna get taller. And so again, I'm doing it at a 45-degree angle with the cut marks facing in. So as you walk around, notice how it's not as obvious.
So what do you project that's gonna look like then, or predict that's gonna look like in a few months?
In a few months, for these really short ones, it's going to have multiple stems that come up, and I bet it'll be, my guess, I bet $2 to myself.
Wow.
That big spender. that they're going to be probably, I don't know, maybe 6 more inches tall, but have multiple blooms on it rather than just one stalk with one set of blooms. That's my guess.
But with this, like cutting tactic of short, why you're doing it short on this on the edge and then taller in the middle.
Right. And so that's a great point. So on the edge, that's going to set the bloom times back. So what we're going to see is going to happen, the center that I don't cut, those will bloom first. They'll be taller, they'll bloom first. And then maybe a week or 2 later, the outer ring, which will be shorter, will then bloom. So it extends your bloom time, which is kind of a cool thing that you can do in your own garden.
Is that technically then a way to like somewhat further support pollinators, because you're extending that period where a plant is providing pollen and nectar?
Yeah, actually it is. I never thought about it like that, but totally. Yeah, because you're extending the bloom. So yeah. And so if there are specialist bees that depend on, say, willow leaf sunflower, which there are a lot. Willow leaf sunflower is one of our Kansas City keystone species. So yeah, you're extending it in that way, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so I feel good about kind of opening space for this blazing star here. Now I'm going to take my electric hedge trimmer and show you all how to use that. Now, a couple things to note when you're using any kind of gardening tool. First, I like to glove up. It just keeps your hands safe. Put your hair up if you have long hair. My hair's up. And safety glasses, okay? If you're using electric tools, you got to wear your safety glasses. It's the way.
Not only does it keep you safe, but it also makes you look really cool.
So this is an electric hedge trimmer by Ego. It's one of my favorite tools. I would say electric tool wise, this and the weed whip. Those are my favorite. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to cut just around the ring of this circle. I'm only going to go in, let's see, probably about 12, maybe 16 inches. Observe. So with this hedge trimmer, you can do kind of a sweeping pass like this, and you're going in and you're bringing your blade out, okay? In, pulling out. There we go, voila. And if you want, then at this stage, you could go in with your hand pruners and clean it up and do those cuts that face inward at a 45-degree angle. Or if you're not worried about that, you don't have to do it. It just depends on your gardening goals. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of experimenting. I'm just gonna trim just a little bit off the top, okay? So I do wanna have the outer ring shorter than the center ring, but we'll just take it off the top just a little bit and then see what happens. We've got another ring that we'll leave, we'll cut it, but we'll just probably do like a single layer, and then that way later we can kind of compare the differences and see what we like. Okay. So now we're here at one of the more established bio-swales, and though you can see the beautiful pale purple coneflowers out in the distance, it is overwhelmed by dogbane, which is a very cool native plant but highly prolific species. So similarly with the gray-headed coneflower, if you don't want it to go to seed, or whatever plant you don't want to go to seed, now would be the perfect time to cut this back.
What in here are you worried about it most out competing?
Well, so I've been working in this bioswale since 2020, and it has already outcompeted like some of our purple poppy mallow, a lot of our Echinacea species. Like there's still some in here, but there used to be a lot more. There used to be landsleaf coreopsis. There used to be so many other species, like some Penstemon digitalis, this foxglove beard tongue. There's only like a few left in here. So you can see, like, you got to make decisions and choices in your garden. If you want a species to spread, let it flower, let it go to seed. But if you don't, cut them off before they do, right? A big space like this, I'd recommend using something like a hedge trimmer, like an electric hedge trimmer. But you could simply go in and just cut back some of these stalks. And it's not going to kill this plant. It is a perennial, so it will come back. But it's blooming, so as soon as it blooms, it's going to quickly go to seed because it's going to get pollinated by all of our wonderful pollinators. So that is a strategy you can implement in your own space.
And that's a wrap. But don't go yet. Stick around for the live Q&A session, which starts right now.
Wow, so much fun. So much fun we had out there.
I know. I was grinning the whole time reliving the memories that we have in those gardens.
I also love that we are including these sociability little dial graphics that Cydney and our graphic designer made for the last episode that came out. So if any of you guys were like, what is that all about? Our last episode was about native plant sociability and plant pairings based on sociability, and it's really some great information. So if you haven't checked that one out yet, go back in our archive. Check it out.
Check it out. Also, isn't that intro and outro music a banger? I just I catch myself singing it all the time. Anyway.
We really do. When we're out filming, we're like, boom, 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 boom. It's good. It's good stuff. All right, let's get into some of these questions.
Do
Thank
it.
you guys for submitting those. If anybody has more questions as we go along, please put those in the Q&A box. It's a little chat box with a question in it at the bottom of your screen. So we will just start at the top with Molly's question. So Molly says, first of all, that the weed pulling ASMR was top tier in this episode, and agreed. Incredibly satisfying. Do you have any recommendations for bindweed?
Yes, Molly, I do. And it's not something you want to hear. So I see Molly had a part 2 of it, which is the bindweeds all over an east-facing steep hill that they're trying to reclaim with native ground cover. Okay, bindweed, there's several species, and unfortunately, okay, so bindweed is a vining plant. And actually, I can't remember if it's an annual or perennial. I think it's an annual, just given how it shows up. We'll put it in the show notes to confirm that or deny it. But the roots go down about 16 feet. And I was just at Shaw Nature Reserve in Gray Summit, Missouri. Shout out to my friends there. Love you. Love all that you do. And I was like, hey, Jen, what's your advice on bindweed? Because all I've found is just pulling it. And she's like, she's the head horticulture there, horticulturalist. And she's like, yeah, pulling is all you can do. So Molly, keep on pulling that bindweed. I would say try to go for maybe use that paint scraper and at a 45-degree angle, like you could root dock it, which will set it back a little bit. But kind of what we expressed in this episode is if you don't want something to go to seed and spread, you need to get rid of it before the blooms go to seed, or ideally with bindweed before it even puts blooms on, because it's prolific and it is the bane of my existence in many of the gardens at the Discovery Center. So thanks for triggering me, Molly, but also You're
What do you call the Discover Native Gardening sessions later on, or just like remove bindweed sessions?
just discover bindweed.
Discover bindweed, that's what it was. Yeah, exactly. That bindweed, man, she's tricky. And yeah, Judith confirmed in the comments that it's a perennial, and I looked that up
Thank
as
you.
well to double check. So it is a perennial. Thanks for sharing that, guys.
Makes sense why it also just can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop, back every year. Okay. Jennifer is asking, we have been putting cardboard under the wood chips in our newly established garden areas to suppress weeds and organic matter as it breaks down. Great. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it,
Great.
Jennifer. I think that's a great way to do it. I had just given a friend of mine some advice on that as well because she's like, I have this amazing raspberry patch and there's just so many weeds growing up through it and I constantly am pulling them. And I'm like, you got to get something to suppress it. And that's exactly what mulch does. But it's an added bonus if you can put cardboard beneath it because it gives a little additional suppression. And then, as Jennifer pointed out, breaks down and adds some organic material over time. So I love it. Good job.
Incredible. Cindy's asking what the grass is in the bio-swales.
Yes. Okay. So there are two species of grasses that are supposed to be in there. Little blue stem and Cydotes grama, which is Bouteloua curtipendular, and little blue stem scientific name is Schiziocarpum. Wait.
Stellatum or something? I
Oh
always get that
no.
one. That one's a tricky one. I'll put it in the
I can
comments.
spell it. Thank you.
I'll
I
put it
can
in the
spell
comments.
it, but then
Yeah.
I like my brain Scoparium. Anyway, whatever. Little blue stem and side oats. And I will say I have some regrets, some regrets, if you will, on how much little blue stem I put in there. So word of advice, if you're gonna do a mix of grasses and forbs, which are flowers, which I do recommend, maybe stick with like a 20% or less ratio of grasses to flowering forbs. Because those grasses, especially like little blue stem, very prolific. So you may see an episode of us later in the year digging out little blue stem, but be determined.
And you said the other one was blue grama, the Bouteloua
Yeah,
curtipendula?
yeah, side oats grama.
Oh, side oats. That's side oats.
Yeah, the taller, it's related to eyelash grass or blue
Yeah.
grama. But yeah. And also if people are wondering like why is grandma sideways? It's actually a reference to graminoides, not our grandmothers. So anyway, fun thing there.
Grandma.
I'm on one today. I'm sorry, guys. I've had
I'm of a grandmother.
so
I'm
excited.
having my grandkids call me side oats grandma.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's so funny. I love side oats. It's aptly named. It's got a curly little stem and the oats sit sideways.
And the blooms are little red friends. Okay, we're gonna have to get a photo in a
Yeah.
upcoming episode.
Thanks for that question, Cindy. Okay, Claire is asking, what is the light for the oh, oh, I see. What is the light for the Missouri Evening Primrose Garden?
So the sunlight conditions of that garden is it's full sun mostly, except you may have noticed there's a huge hackberry or like two hackberries joined that give a little bit of shade. So it gets 6 hours of full sun, but then a good majority of that garden, the entire garden is shaded in the late afternoon. But then that far, what is it, north edge gets the most shade, which, as I mentioned, helps keep that Missouri evening primrose, that bright, beautiful yellow flower that's very prolific, to stay towards the edge. And it kind of reaches for the sun. So I did not plan that. It worked out perfectly, though. And it's something I'm paying attention to for future gardens.
Yeah, very nice. Val is asking, isn't dogbane aggressively rhizomatous? Shouldn't you be yanking in addition to keeping the seeds from forming?
Val, absolutely. But do we have time to do that? We
No.
don't, unfortunately. So it is more like insulting the plant, which I kind of joked about. But it just depends on your goals. In an ideal world, if we had more hands in the gardens, we would definitely be pulling that. And that's actually my advice for the landscape crew there is to pull those out. Because yeah, it is a very prolific spreader through rhizome and seed.
Yeah, but at least by cutting back those stems like you were showing then, we're limiting some of the spread or limiting some of the spread by the seeds, but for sure, Val.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Lily brought up again the sociability metrics that we were talking about right after the show, and is wondering if there's any way, anywhere that they can view those metrics for different plants.
Sure. First of all, hi Lily. Good to hear from you. Maddie mentioned we did an episode just this past couple weeks on sociability. It's called native plant pairings. Now, I want to say the sociability aspect of native plants has a lot of variables, and you can learn more about that in that episode. But other things that we're going to get into in future conversations are sunlight conditions, like site conditions, sunlight, soil type, all of that, because that we've heard from friends across the region and across the country. Actually, they're like, it's interesting, like yarrow in their garden outcompetes Ohio spiderwort, which it doesn't in my gardens, but that's because the gardens that we have them here are more average to wet, whereas yarrow thrives in like really dry conditions. So there's variables. But I encourage you to check out that episode, and then in the near future, Deep Roots should have a resource on the sociability of native plants specifically for Kansas City. So we'll have that on our website and probably in a future pollinator newsletter, I suspect.
Yeah, that sounds great. Great pitch. I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of different angles to plant sociability, and we are just like beginning to explore all the things to consider. So we'll definitely be sharing those as often as we can because it's really important when planting a garden, and we love learning about it. Okay, Christy is asking, why did you throw the last clipping back into the garden if you don't want it to go to seed? Why not compost it elsewhere?
Christy, that's a really great point. Busted. Typically we actually gather all the material and compost it. I was just being lazy. So busted there. But yeah, you're right. If it has, since it's flowered, if it had already been pollinated, it could go to seed. But also sometimes if you cut it, it doesn't always go to seed. So, but you're right. You're right, Christy. I should have composted it or put it somewhere I did want it to go to seed. So
Okay. Maureen is saying that their gray-headed coneflower, which is the Rattabeta pinnata species that we were cutting in the bio-swales, theirs has already set bloom. Is it too late to Chelsea chop?
Okay, Maureen. So if your goal, so Chelsea chopping again, just to reiterate, the goal is to prune back plants that get tall and bloom later in the season to a more compact height with more blooms. Since your gray-headed coneflower that I'm assuming you want to bloom has already put on buds, it probably is too late for you to do the Chelsea chop. Chelsea chop, with that definition, is reserved for plants that have not set blooms on. Now, if you want to prevent your gray-headed coneflower from going to seed, you could cut it off now before those blooms have opened, to just kind of set it back a little bit. It could bloom, like TBD on that. We're going to see in our experiment at the Discovery Center if it will indeed bloom like in a couple months. But I have a feeling that it's going to put its energy elsewhere. But we'll see. We'll find out.
Totally. Great question, Maureen. Thank you for sharing. And then I think this would be a good time to pause and do our pop quiz for today's episode. Cydney, do you want to talk about our prize while I get that question loaded?
You. Okay, friends. So I'll go over the rules of our pop quiz. So Maddie is going to have a question for you all, and she will also put it in the chat. So before she says the question, I want you to go ahead and find your chat box. Okay, go ahead and select that. We don't want you to put your answer in the Q&A. We want you to put it in the chat and select everyone, because we want everyone to see everyone's answers. And one lucky winner is going to win not only a copy of Roy Diblick's The No Maintenance Perennial Garden. Knowing your plants means less work. Yes, it does. But guess what? You're also going to get my favorite weeding tool, which not this one, because you can tell I used it this morning, but I'll give you a new one, a paint scraper. So we can be twinning in the garden, if you will.
I love that. And
That's
as we
the
saw in the
prize.
video, super useful tool.
So useful. Big fan.
Okay, if everybody's ready in that chat box, you can make sure that you're sending your answer to everyone and not just to host and panelists. And I'm ready to send. Fingers at the ready. Pop quiz question for today. According to this video, what percent of plant material is recommended to cut for a successful Chelsea chop?
You guys are, I was like, Maddie and I are like, how can we stump this audience? We can't. You guys are too smart and you're too
Guys,
fast.
I feel like somebody almost sent it before I could send the question. That was crazy. Claire, you were the first one to respond with 20 to 30%. That is
Congrats,
correct.
Claire.
Of
So
course, we didn't
Claire,
end up following that percentage in the video,
yeah, right.
but that is what's suggested.
That's
So,
what's suggested. So Claire, if you would, when I send you all the email with the resources, respond to the email to me and Maddie with your mailing address, and I will send out your book and your new gardening tool. So congratulations, Claire, and thank you everyone for playing. It's always a fun little perk of this program. Yeah,
awesome.
and R. Darrett, you're right. People are really quick. It's like
We're
boggles my
so
mind.
quick. I like need to start taking typing tests to like speed up in case I ever have to fight for my life against our audience. Okay, back to our questions. Deborah just really quickly wanted to clarify what we were trimming into tiers in those prairie circles. Those that was willow leaf sunflower. I believe that's the one that she's referring to.
Yes. And hi,
Um,
Deborah.
which is a great plant, very tall, extremely tall.
Fantastic. Fantastic plant. Very, very
Mhm.
cool.
Okay, an anonymous attendee asked, they shared first that they have a shaded area that drains a reservoir that has three areas that flow into a ravine, a lot of draining, and it's only dirt. Any suggestions for low growing plants that will hold the dirt in and tolerate shade to keep that
Yeah.
dirt stable?
Okay, the first plant that came to my mind was Persicaria, which is a jump seed. It's a shade lover. It's taller, but it like the way the fronds go, that kind of dips down. Um, and uh, yeah, so that would be my recommendation for that one. And then I will give it some thought and include some additional plant recommendations in the show notes. But just to keep things moving, that's the one that came to mind. Yeah, I'll stop there because I'm like my brain's gonna go in a lot of directions otherwise. Great
Yeah,
question.
totally. Okay, Jennifer's asking, wondering if anyone has experience with self-watering raised beds. We are having the hardest time with ours, especially with all the rain. They're always wet and are causing lots of stuff to rot and die. Never mind the gnats everywhere.
Hmm.
Tips, thoughts, best practices.
Self-watering raised beds. What does
Yeah.
that mean, Jennifer? Let me know what that means.
Jennifer, shoot us an email maybe with some more
Yeah.
details on that.
Because we also have a friend and teammate of Deep Roots, Kay Thomason, is an avid vegetable gardener and probably has some good insight there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe time for one more. Um,
Yes. Let me see
you have the one you
here.
want to answer from here, Sid?
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to answer two very quickly. Okay. First, Deborah, thoughts on using thoughts on using ground leaves versus mulch on bare soil. Yes, I yes to both. I've seen great um, turnout with using mulched up leaves. Now the problem is you're mulching up all your insect friends that live in the leaves. But if you're just using, depending on your goals, depending on how much leaves you have, maybe that's a great option. Because as we know, trees don't drop their leaves for no reason. It breaks down and feeds the soil and the plants around it. But you could use a store-bought mulch as well. Just avoid using ones that are dyed and don't use rubber mulch. Like, why do we even have that as an option out here? I like Soil Pet from Soil Service. That's my favorite.
Totally.
And then Val, okay, I want to answer this question about spiderwort, Tradescantia ohiensis, because I just learned this from my friend Maggie Riggs, who stewards the TWA rooftop garden. And Val's question is, do you cut back Ohio spiderwort after flowering because they get so ugly? First of all, we don't call our friends ugly, Val. Just kidding. So something interesting about spiderworts, at least with Ohio, this is probably true for woodland as well, but you'll notice each plant has one bloom open, or the blooms open for the day, and then they disappear. And what's happening is that plant is actually absorbing all the liquid and nutrients from the flower petals back into the plant. I'm sorry, what? What? I need to learn more about this because it kind of blew my mind. So yeah, I don't personally cut them back, but that is a, personal aesthetic choice, and I won't judge you too much for doing it. No.
Wow, that is very cool.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
all.
pretty fun.
Okay, guys, I think that is probably all we have time for today. But thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you found something to take away from today's episode. I know I learned a lot working out there in the gardens with Cydney recently. And yeah, it's native gardening time. We hope we'll see you guys this week at our native plant sale, our pop-up pollinator plant sale at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center, as well as our native landscape chat on Friday at 1 and our habitat garden tour sometime between 9 and 2. Come and join us out in
Yeah.
these gardens, guys. So much fun
Ooh.
exploration to do.
Please do, guys. Yeah, and I'm headed to the plant sale now. I'll be there this afternoon. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. So come say hi. I would love to see you, and then go see Maddie at the garden tours. We'll see
Yeah,
you there. There's so much
we'll
good
see you
stuff.
there. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye.